And folks, on this end, the Parti québécois and leader Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon still want independence, just not while Donald Trump is still in the White House. 1 week before Quebec's provincial election campaign officially begins, the PQ leader has moved the referendum question firmly into the future.
That he has, Eddie. That was an interesting little surprise the other day when he came out with that, for sure. Yeah, and the way he is trying to sell it at the moment. So he is suspending the referendum at least until the end of the Trump era.
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying that a PQ government would still consult Quebecers on independence during its first mandate, but we'll just push back. There will be no referendum while Trump is president, which is interesting in a lot of ways. He issued a statement Monday on X. Yeah, and it was a rather lengthy statement, but it formally sets out January 20th, 2029 as the earliest possible date for a Quebec referendum on independence. Now, Plamondon, the leader, says the October 5th election should instead focus on who can fix Quebec's problems. Okay, So we have the Trump factor. Plamondon says American political instability could distort a referendum debate. Okay, then we have political strategy to think about. By removing the referendum from the immediate election equation, can the PQ campaign on governing rather than sovereignty? Can they campaign on governing rather than sovereignty?
Sovereignty.
Yeah. And the contradiction. If independence is the solution that Plamondon says Quebec needs, why should the timing depend on who occupies the White House?
Mm-hmm.
So why does this sudden revelation matter? Well, let's put it this way. He hasn't backed away from sovereignty. He's just trying to separate voting PQ from voting immediately on independence. Potentially a major strategic move 1 week before the provincial election campaign begins.
Yeah.
I think he's reading the tea leaves in the fact that the polls are showing the majority of Quebecers want nothing to do with a referendum.
A large majority.
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is his main drum that he beats during the election campaign, then he gets lost in the noise, is how I see it.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Well, I mean, there's no better excuse than the current White House administration.
Gary, let me stop you there for a second. Imagine anyone using President Trump for a crutch for anything, and it's actually happening right here in our province. That's the first thing that struck me when I heard about this. Like, I don't believe it. You know what? From a tactical perspective, well played. But
It is.
from I don't know if it's actually going to work for him from a voter perspective. As you had said, the majority of Quebecers want nothing to do with a referendum or separation from Canada at this point. That's point one, and point two, the Liberal Party, Charles Millard. He's nipping at his heels in terms of preferred party to lead this province over the next 4 years. So the man had to shake something up. He had to create something, some sort of a momentum to try to get the voter base back onto his side. And I think tactically this was extremely well played. I don't know if it was driven by him or his campaign people or his lieutenants in terms of making sure that they actually win the next election. And God knows if they do win the next election, are they even going to have a majority? Which would also put our province here with one foot in the grave. We've seen how minority governments were dysfunctional in this province in the past. So yeah, there's a lot riding here, Gary. Not just who wins the election, but by how much. And you know. PSPP, he's going to be looked at in the same light as in our next segment, Poiliev in losing a substantial lead heading into an election. So there's a lot at stake here.
Very much so, and that's a good point that you bring up in the fact that when you look at what kind of a lead Poiliev had going into the last federal election campaign, and you had a green leader, never been in politics before, just in the banking world, and he blew it. And the writing is on the wall in the fact that Quebecers are not, the majority of Quebecers are not interested at all in another referendum. Now,
but I can't see you.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
If you think about it and look at some of the polls as well, a lot of the younger demo in Quebec is more open to a referendum and talking about separation. But that's a very young demo that does not necessarily go out and vote, at least at this stage. So they talk, but by having that conversation being promoted, the message about the rest of the governance of the province will get lost, and he'll just be wearing the referendum question around his neck. So yes, really good idea to do what he did and actually say, okay, no earlier than January, whatever it was, 2029, which would be Trump's last day, the swearing in of a new president.
Right.
What happens after that? Does he wait for a little while to see where the new president is going? What kind of an individual that we're dealing with at that stage? You know, there are different things. So, you know, as you say, he gets to maintain the PQ's fundamental sovereignty commitment, and now it's off the table. And, you know, he's effectively telling Quebec voters that you don't have to decide about independence this October. You have to decide whether you want us to govern Quebec.
Which has not been his platform at all.
Right.
Like leading into this week for wow, pure tactical. And look, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether, you know, you have Trump running for a third term and changes the Constitution along the way, or we have a Democratic president, or even a Republican president. It really makes no difference in terms of, you know, when Quebec should call a referendum. If that's his platform, he's going to call it. Okay. And I just don't, I understand why he did this, but if you, and there's two points I'd like to bring up, Gary, if I may. You bring up the young demographic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't PSPP actually raise the question to Legault at some point to drop the voting age to 16 in this province? I think it was PSPP who brought it up.
May have been. I don't remember.
Yeah. Someone raised the issue of potentially dropping the voting age in Quebec to 16. And if it was PSPP, it would make perfect sense if you're saying that the demographic here seems to be embracing the idea of separation, except maybe they may not go to the polls and vote, but that just kind of triggered that piece. The second thing I thought about was, you know, when this first came out was, okay, tactically, I see what he's doing. And I'm thinking about it in terms of unity with the Canadian Federation and remaining in Canada, right? And remember this whole hoopla about the PQ Blue Book that came out a few months ago. I mean, if you read this thing, it's like, we don't need the rest of the world. We can survive on our own. I mean, pretty much that was the message in that blue book from the majority information that I actually read. So it comes down to, isn't Quebec supposed to be capable of surviving off it on its own? Shouldn't have to depend on anything Canada does, and shouldn't have to depend on what's going on in the world. If you believe you're going to be surviving on your own, why wait? Let's go ahead and throw a referendum and see what happens. International issues will always be present, and from a PSP perspective, why are you trying to stay on the coattails of Canada if you want to separate from Canada? So those are kinds of things that kind of went through my head when my emotions were rolling on this thing. And when I thought about it a little further, tactically, I see exactly what he's up to. Now, it's a risk, absolutely. Is he going to lose his true blue separatist hardcore supporters in the process? Possibly, because they're usually very impatient. I don't know. It's gonna be very interesting, Garen. Like you said, the campaign starts in a week. I think it's going to be a very swift, fast-moving campaign with all sorts of finger pointing. The CAC has everything to lose, although I don't think they're going to be winning anything close to an election. Right now, it's PSPP's election to lose, and he is losing it so far, unless a miracle happens. And we'll see what happens. And it's going to be a swift, quick campaign without the interests of the Anglophone Quebecer being addressed in any English debate. As we talked a couple of shows ago, we're not going to have an English debate. So too bad for us. But I'll still watch the debate because I'm interested in what's going on, and we'll see what happens. But I'm just surprised that he's trying to. He's basically walking a very thin fence. Literally, that's what he's doing. On one side, he's got his separatist promises, and on the other side, he's trying to make sure that he can still ride the coattails of Canadian success and business entities and security of Canada, and by the same token, use the United States as a crutch. So the man is walking a very fine line. I wish him the best of luck in whatever he's walking. But we'll see what happens in a few weeks.
Well, Eddie, just the other day when the new agreement with Newfoundland and Labrador for Churchill Falls and
Frechette, yeah,
and the Prime Minister was there because the feds are involved, and it's the whole thing, including a new wind farm. It's all being developed as a national project, nation-building project, because they're going to have enough power coming out of there to heat and cool and light every home in Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And already Plamondon was saying on the day of the announcement, no, the deal's not worth anything. We will sit down and renegotiate it when we, take over. So already he's shooting holes in it. And he must have said something prior to the actual ceremony or announcement.
Right.
Because a reporter asked Premier Frechette about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I give her full marks. Like, she came back with a pretty feisty answer and just said, like, where is he going to make up the 10,000 kilowatt hours or whatever the number was? It was a large number. If he does this. Right, boom.
Right.
Nailed it right there. So he said, I think she's going to be a feisty individual on the campaign trail.
Who is?
So I think it's going to be interesting and probably a little entertaining at times to watch those two lock heads.
Oh, you're talking about Frechette and PSPP?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
it's going to be colorful.
It is, and because just watching her demeanor when she delivered that line with the Prime Minister behind her and the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador on the other side behind her. And she just, I gave her full marks. It was well delivered.
Yeah, yeah. I look.
Well delivered.
I might not agree with the policies of the CAC,
Yep.
but I agree with you there, Gary. When she was with her first Team Canada meeting with with the premiers of Canada with Carney, just the way she presented herself with a group or individually in front of a microphone and cameras, she really delivered solid opinions, direction, and actually gave you a feeling that there's some leadership and some intelligence behind those words. I felt that too. And when they were actually announcing the Churchill Falls deal, just the way she spoke and the strength of her words, I was quite impressed. The few speeches she's made, she's put Legault to freaking shame.
Oh,
Legault
yeah.
doesn't even hold a candle towards this woman. So she's a sharp lady, sharp cookie. She knows what this province needs. And right at this particular point, this is a fantastic deal for Quebec, for the East Coast, and for all of Canada in terms of the money that's being invested by Carney and his government to make sure that Canada continues to evolve its power infrastructure. What a remarkable deal! And you know what? I don't think PSPP did themselves any deals or any not deals, but did himself any good in making a bold statement like that. You know, it's like if he had said that, I would have loved for him to have followed up with, "This is how I would do it."
Yeah,
And we'll talk
exactly.
about it in segment three. How many leaders do we know that'll criticize and not have any other options for you? But believe me, right?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, absolutely. Frechette's been doing a good job as Premier of Quebec so far, I think.
I have to give her marks. There's no doubt about it. I'm not crazy about a lot of the policies of the party
Yeah.
in the past and that exist at the moment. And maybe if she could pull off a win in this election, that would give her a chance to put her own fingerprint on government and the direction of government in the province. And we might be pleasantly surprised, or we may not be. But, at least at this point, she's showing that she has the ability to hold the line and actually take on anyone who starts throwing things around,
Right.
and she can just come right back with an answer, with some numbers, with whatever, like a solid reason. So I give
Yeah.
her full marks that way. I mean, I really didn't know her, but I've been watching her since she became leader of the CAC and premier. And aside from the Anglophone thing, and she said she wants to reach out to Anglophones. Well, if you want to reach out to Anglophones, at least debate or in
Right.
English, and or use a softer tone, and maybe promote some ideas as to how to save a chunk of money that could be redirected to healthcare by getting rid of the language police.
Yeah. Oh, you know
But
what are
that's
the
a
words
whole
that
other show.
yeah, the words that eluded me is to define her. There's an air of political maturity about her.
Yes. Good. Yeah. Very good way of
Those are
putting it.
yeah, political maturity seems to be there. Every time she steps up to a microphone or looks into a camera, she's not. It doesn't seem like she's speaking at people. It looks more like she's speaking to people when she addresses the public, which is something we both you and I would like to see more of in our leaders for sure.
Right. And, you can't take that away from Plamondon either, because he is a good speaker.
He is.
Even, like when he's speaking in English, he has no problem at all to get his point across. And he's, he can, he's got the ability to craft the words and let them flow, and, grabs your attention. So it would be really interesting to see the two of them for sure square
Yeah.
off in an English debate, and then, as well as a French debate.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very colorful French debate. I mean, you and I were we both sat down with a couple of beer and watched the federal debate with a lot of
Right.
interest.
Yeah.
I think this one is going to be way more colorful in terms of the back and forths, and I think all candidates are going to be presenting some real solid facts for discussion, and I think a lot of Quebecers are eager to hear how they're going to fix the ails of our province. We're struggling in so many different areas, not just hear what they're going to fix, because we all know what they need to fix. How are you going to fix it? And if you wanna swing the ball over the fence, swing the bat and get the ball over the fence, tell us when. you know. So I mean, healthcare. Yeah, you and I both know healthcare is going to be discussed ad nauseum, and I'd like to hear what they're going to be doing. Myself personally, trim the fat. The first premier, I think, that's going to say, I am going to trim the fat, I think is a home run for them when it comes to the healthcare system here. Too much fat. You and I have seen it. We've talked about it. We read about it. We see it all the time. And we're just going to have to wait and see. So certainly, I think the discussion point during the debate is certainly going to be about the health system. Education is going to be important as well. And you know what? I would not be surprised if language is going to be brought up in the discussions.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
One thing we know won't be in the discussions is the current occupant of the White House. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. So Eddie,
Yeah.
what is our takeaway?
Well, my friend, the takeaway is Plamondon, he hasn't abandoned the referendum. He's taken it off the table for now.